Hello and welcome to Art Talks episode 1, or episode 0 depending on how you look at it, because this is the pilot episode. Now, because of the 30K subscriber special, this will be on YouTube in full. However, if you want future episodes of full, vulnerable, optimized art talks to help you on your creative journey, you can check out the Artist Ascent Drawing Development Program on Gumroad, which is linked in the description box. Otherwise, if you're already here, welcome. I'm happy to have you, and let's talk. Okay, so first and foremost, this episode is entitled The Creative Journey in You. The reason why is because I really want to talk about what it means to create, to have creative ambitions, and to kind of live that lifestyle and how you can best optimize for success, for well-being, and to avoid some of the common pitfalls and some of the maybe not so common pitfalls that can really trip you up and maybe even potentially waste years of your life and your existence trying to kind of crawl your way out of some of those traps. So first, I just want to say that I will be sharing some fairly personal stories in this particular art talk just because they are relevant, and I want you to understand where I'm coming from as well. I have made numerous mistakes along my journey. I am now 30 years old, and I graduated from college, in 2013. And before then, I went into college in 2009. So I've had quite the journey thus far. It's been a little over a decade, and I have been working since 2013. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of context in that regard. But let's talk about some of the main things you can do on your creative journey to make sure that you give yourself the best possible chance of succeeding, not only financially, but in terms of your health, your well-being, the well-being of those around you. I like to talk comprehensively about this sort of stuff because I feel that things can get very myopic and you just focus in on one area such as art, and then everything around art starts crumbling to pieces, and you have to quickly kind of shuffle and run from here to there trying to pick up your health or pick up your broken relationships or pick up your finances because you decided that you wanted to be an artist, and that means you have to sacrifice everything or neglect other areas, when in reality that's not the case. And I really think that yes, there are some sacrifices to be made or some things that you might have to shift around, but it doesn't need to be this deep and painful and depression-inducing kind of thing. And that said, I am not a psychologist or a doctor in any capacity. I qualify the statement of saying that anything I do say or recommend should be taken at your own risk. These are for educational purposes only, and I am not liable in any fashion, any capacity whatsoever, just because I need to cover myself legally. But that out of the way, I want to say that this hopefully will help you and will allow you to ascertain greater results on your creative journey. So I have my notebook here for some of my talking points that I'm going to be doing, and let's just start hopping down into those. So in order to optimize, you need to be organized as a creative. You need to have your systems in place. Now, what that looks like for each and every person will be different, but in terms of systemizing, I always recommend that you have ample digital storage for your work, whether that is a nice hard drive, several flash drives, external hard drives, external SSDs, and having an online cloud storage platform like Dropbox or iCloud or Google Drive, something like that, because you want to make sure that your files are protected. Those are your assets. Those are how you will, generate income. Those are how you will go back and revisit your work. And you need to be able to archive things so that you have them for the future, because you never know when you will need them. You need to be able to organize those things, by year, sometimes by whatever category you choose. But broadly speaking, organization is key. And that goes for your day as well. I know that a lot of creatives just want to get out of bed and do whatever, sip a cup of coffee for 3 hours and then maybe doodle a little bit. But in reality, it's like a profession that you would have anywhere else in terms of your, position or job or occupation. You should have some format of schedule because your success will orbit around your day-to-day habits, which leads me to the next talking point, which is habits. Some of your habits will need to be revolving around creating and organizing in the day-to-day, backing up files, but also making new stuff, keeping your process going in terms of the longer pieces, starting new ideas, leaving time for all of that sort of stuff. And some people work better in the morning, some people work better late into the night. And that is definitely up to you as far as your preferred working modalities go. But you want to get into the habit of creating every single day. And you should know when your peak creativity hours are so that you can really ride that window when you can shut your door or shut out the outside world and start to talk to the muse, as it were. So make sure that however you form your habits, you have time to create, time to organize, but also time to either promote yourself or market or keep in touch with clients and connections. So those are the three big ones that I always suggest. Obviously, we're going to talk about a little bit of health and habits that orbit around that later. But for now, just remember you want time to create, time to organize your creations, and time to also reach out or prospect or market or make sure that you are staying afloat in terms of your client connections or whatever client work you may be doing, or if you're trying to get client work, making those connections and fostering them. And we'll talk more about that in later Art Talks episodes. This one isn't going to be super long because we have a lot of overview to cover and set us up for some of the later episodes that will be released. So next, let's talk about your attitude. Attitude is huge. I don't care how you parse it. A lot of artists, myself included, can be very moody, can be very morose, can be very doom and gloom, existential in a not so prosperous or healthy way. And in that capacity, we always need to be kind of checking and resetting ourselves. If you need to go to therapy, I highly recommend you do so. I have just started and it has helped me tremendously. If you need to just do a fair amount of self-care, that is also very wise because a lot of times we neglect certain areas and again, it starts harming the art anyway. So you have to have this comprehensive view of your existence. But to get back to the point of attitude, most of it should just revolve around an attitude of gratitude. To put it simply or to speak roughly about it, your gratitude will permit you to ascend in terms of your mood, in terms of your connections. It is just really, really good to focus on several things you get to be grateful for, such as the opportunity to create, such as having the urge to express yourself in this particular way, whether it's drawing or painting or making your own comics, animations, graphic design, videos, whatever it is. The attitude of gratitude will bring the level of the work up because you won't be sitting in these mental mires of self-doubt and problematic reasoning. So it will really help to serve you and to serve your clients. One thing that I had that I still have sort of an attitude problem with is client work. So basically when you're paid, you are paid to put up with nonsense in a lot of ways. You're paid to put up with problems and issues that may arise during the service that you're rendering. And it's really hard to detach yourself from the work and just to have a professional attitude and move through the process and still try to do your best work. And that's something that comes over time and comes with, working on your attitude and tweaking it to the point where you save some time for personal work so you don't feel completely drained and bitter about having to do client work to pay your bills or something. Basically, as long as you are grateful across the board and you find ways to foster that gratitude each and every morning, each and every night, you will be in a better place mentally every day. Your work will be stronger, your connections will be stronger, everything will just be stronger. As far as working on attitude, a lot of attitude is also having trust or faith that what you're doing will work out for you. That is really something that is built over time as well, something that has helped me a lot, not to focus on all the doom and gloom of this path, whether it is picky clients with lots of revisions or low-paying gigs or some of the stuff that's really hard when it comes to quote-unquote paying your dues, which I don't believe in, and we will dig into later in more Art Talks episodes. But as long as you are trusting yourself, having trust in you is huge. I want you to take a second to trust your being, to say that, you know what, I am going to do it, I am going to make it, even if I have to take a day job that isn't related to art, even if I have to work on some less than desirable gigs, or even if I have other problems I have to overcome, I trust myself to go through the process. I trust myself to work in ways that are smart and efficient and focused, and that when I do fall off the path that I can self-correct, or my support network will really help me. Which brings me to my next point, which is having a support system. Nobody is an island, and artists tend to bring themselves into these voids of isolation, of introversion, of, painful habits, whether those habits are really dangerous, like developing a substance problem, or just having really bad spirals of thought that bring you into modes of depression and anxiety, which a lot of creatives are very prone to do, sadly. However, it is a beautiful thing because some of those places that you go will teach you the lessons you need to go there less often and to a lesser degree. Now, everybody deals with horrific events in their lives, and I'm not downplaying any sort of trauma because I have been through a fair amount myself, and everybody's story is different. Everybody has similar, touch points in terms of, okay, we went through some very bad things, but everybody's bad things, take on their own sort of horrific form. And yet when we face those things and overcome them, or we're going through them and kind of have trust and faith in ourselves and the support system that we've cultivated or are beginning to cultivate, then we have the tools necessary to get through it and to thrive despite it. So the support system is really important. As far as your support system goes, you need to have people to check on your mental health, your physical health, and you need to have family and friends. And I say need, but I don't mean need in like a very, kind of gross way, in a way that's very like clingy and desperate, because that sort of energy tends to repel you as you're seeking those things. So I just mean it is very wise to bring yourself into a realm where you start to make a list of those things and get the best version of them you can wherever you are. Like I said, everybody's situation and scenario is different. I am just sharing how you can come up, how you can prosper, and how you can start to take care of some of these things. And maybe you already have. Maybe you're a little bit older and you figured out some of those things, or maybe you were fortunate and very blessed and your parents set you up properly, or whoever took care of you. But a lot of us, we have to go through various systems in life in ways that do not really serve us, and in ways that we have to figure out ourselves. So make sure that you have some sort of doctor, some sort of mental health professional. Make sure that you find friends that resonate with you, that have positive attitudes for the most part, and allow you to kind of grow. All the better if those friends are creatives in their own right. Make sure that if your family isn't supportive, then you either distance yourself from them, or you find ways just to coexist in the best way possible, where you insulate yourself with better friends or better professionals that allow you to be in an environment where growth is more ideal. If you're planted in soil and the people around you are kind of soiled in their own way and they have their own stuff to work out, it's very, very difficult not to let those toxic influences break you. And I know that it's probably very difficult wherever you are, and I have sympathy for you because I've been in those situations, and it took me a long time to get out. It took me till I was basically 27. So that's just to give you a little bit of a clue there. And before I was 27, it was way worse. So again, without going into too much in this episode, I've surmounted a fair amount of pain on this journey, and I know that it's really, really difficult, but you have to find that strength within you, and you have to start making those phone calls and doing those internet searches and getting these systems into place, because the support system will help you along your journey. It will give you peace of mind that allows you to create, so that you're not constantly thinking about your health or worrying about this or that. So another big one is to always save as much capital as you possibly can. Whatever money does come your way, find ways to save, find ways to cut costs. Make sure that you are not overspending on anything. Don't overspend on food, don't overspend on games or whatever your hobbies are, or even don't overspend on art supplies. Find ways to do things, if you don't have a lot of capital, in the most efficient way. And sometimes that looks like, breaking it down. You're like, maybe some of you creatives are rolling your eyes right now of, having to deal with math, having to deal with numbers. But I guarantee you that you will be happier. You will have more peace if you can find ways to get your finances in order. If you don't have order and structure imposed in your existence, then things will tend to fall apart very quickly. You are always flying by the seat of your pants. You are always in a state of high anxiety, or you're always one problem away from spiraling downward in many capacities. So that's why I always say the support system is really important, and the financial aspect is part of that. I know that sometimes we have children, or we are children of people who are having problems parentally. Or maybe you have a scenario wherein your children need special care, and that's very expensive. And again, my sincerest sympathies, my sincerest empathies. It is always going to be difficult. There are always going to be challenges, but you are here, you are listening to this because you are looking for solutions, because you are looking for ways to improve and amplify your existence so that you may create at higher and higher levels. And that's what I am giving you. I'm not trying to talk down to anybody. I am not trying to bring about any sort of haughtiness. I am meeting you as close to a heart-to-heart as we possibly can through this particular format, because obviously I'm not talking to you one-on-one right now unless you're part of the plutonium tier of the Ascent group, but that is only because I have so many responsibilities that I need to set aside time in order to do that for people who have more of a commitment to it. But either way, make sure that you have your savings in order. Save as much as you possibly can. Make automatic, transferences out of your bank account into a savings account where it's hard to get the money. If you have problems spending, cut back all your expenses. Stop doing really bad habits for you that cost a lot of money. Again, easier said than done. I've quit smoking. I have quit buying marijuana. I've quit doing a lot of things that were not good for me and cost a lot of money over time. I never had a gambling problem, but there are free groups you can go to in at least the USA where you can talk about that. Same with AA. If you have substance problems, that is also free. Again, I don't pretend to have the answers to everything. I am just saying that if you're not going to sort these things, then they will eventually unravel you and they will dismantle your journey and you're not going to get the results you want. I want you to ascend. I want you to go to these levels that heretofore you thought were out of your reach or that have eluded you time and time again. That's why you are in the Ascent Academy, so you can ascend. So I'm broaching all these topics right now. As I get more feedback or as I figure them out, we will talk more about them, and I will find the most careful way to approach them. I will walk on the eggshells necessary, but I will also try to give you as much truth as I possibly can. And that's just, my way of doing it. I appreciate you understanding the humanity here, and I appreciate you understanding that I'm also just trying to do my best with what I have to help you get to the next levels. The next aspect is grants. If you can get those are part of a good support system. Those are more optional. I have never gotten any grants myself. I did get a little bit of student aid in college, but it was still incredibly expensive, and I am still in quite a bit of debt that I have to kind of parse moving forward. That's one of the challenges that I'm currently facing that I will, supersede at some point. But right now, it's part of the savings game. It's part of the putting away and working a little harder or a little later game to make more capital come my way to get rid of that negative debit. So that's something that we'll talk about later. Is it worth it for you to go to art school? And spoiler alert for me, I would say it is dead in the middle. It's like 50-50 worth it. It was for me. And I'm one of the people who got out with less debt than a lot of other people have. So we'll talk about that in a later episode of Art Talks because our time is growing short together in this particular episode. Lastly, I just want to talk about exercise and reading. You really want to have some format of exercise, whether it's a 30-minute walk every day, 15-minute walk if it's too cold. Then stay inside or bundle up really well and go for a walk. But you cannot live sedentary and expect to be healthy mentally and physically. It's just something that our culture normalizes when in fact it's not good for you in many capacities. So at least walk for 30 minutes every day. And if you can't walk, then exercise for 30 minutes. Even if it's just stretching and yoga. Yoga is pretty vigorous if you get into it, trust me. There's lots of ways to exercise, lots of ways to move your being, to move your physicality around, but that's part of being healthy. That's part of having the capacity to create, because you don't want to be sitting there with weird aches and weird pains that make you worry or that, harm your process. So that's why we kind of jump back to like the doctor system or like, having a decent diet. All these things are going to help create a stronger version of yourself so that you can ascend artistically and otherwise. Reading, I always recommend Stephen Pressfield and Seth Godin. Books by those two authors are creative fuel. They will help you to move past a lot of blocks that are going to stop you on this journey, and they do a better job of explaining certain things than I ever could, just because it wasn't my specialization. My specialization differs because I'm teaching on multiple different fronts and I'm still developing my own style. But I digress. Basically, they are really potent authors and they will help you a lot. You can go to Audible and get books by them. I recommend The Practice by Seth Godin and Do the Work by Stephen Pressfield. Other than that, always look for more resources in terms of your learning. Be sure to try out a lot of courses, not just my courses, but every course that you can find that resonates with you, or just grab books by certain people who have laid out fundamentals in really potent ways for artists. One that was really helpful for me was The Practice and Science of Drawing by Harold Speed. Anything by George Bridgman or Andrew Loomis. Those are really, really helpful for ascending and drawing ability and understanding principles on many, many levels. At any rate, it has been a pleasure. Again, I really hope that you will forgive any foibles, any mistakes I've made anytime I came off as even remotely insensitive or seemingly glazed over a topic that might be very important and deep and may have touched or triggered any wounds. It is not my intention. I just am here to be a beacon for your improvement and evolution. Those of you who have, real traumas and real things, and many of us do, we have to find ways to ascend beyond them. Otherwise, they will limit us for the rest of our existence. And it's no small feat to do that. I've read a lot of personal development. I, again, always recommend finding a psychologist and just getting around a lot of those things, because they will surely impede you on your journey. Lastly, welcome to the Artist Ascent Academy, and you will be getting more and more potent things of art talks and other challenges and things to help you grow in terms of your skill, but also holistically and comprehensively, because again, I can't just focus on solely art. I will have to let everyone know as best as I can what has worked for me, what took me from, the depths of despair and pain and problems into levels that I right now feel are much better, even though there is always room for improvement. Again, I don't have all the answers. I don't pretend to even remotely have all the answers, but hopefully I have touched on some points that will allow you to move upward, just as is the goal here. So, last thing I will say before we wrap up this episode of Art Talks is whatever I talked about or touched on in this, very large overview of an episode, I really want you to reach out to me through, email, or I think that's the best way. So reach out to me through email. I'll put it right here so you can see it, and that will allow you to let me know what things you want me to talk about moving forward, and if I can grab any guests for Art Talks, I certainly will. People who I have vetted or who are on their own creative journeys and have things to say that will also help you. Otherwise, you and I will be getting very, very acquainted over the next couple episodes. My plan right now is one a month, because I do have a lot of other things to do, not only just in the Artist Ascent program, but other content, other blogs, tweaking lessons, giving feedback. There's quite a lot to juggle, but I really appreciate you with the deepest sincerity that I can possibly express through this particular medium. It's again, as personal as I can make it, and I hope that comes through. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I will see you in the next episode of Art Talks, wherein I will be talking. I have an outline of stuff I have, written out for episodes, but I always want feedback to know what you want me to touch on more, what you want me to expand upon, what you're struggling with, and I will do my utmost. Thank you, and happy creating.